Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Python Programming for Beginners series. In this video we'll be talking about random module. But before we consider the random module, what is module actually? What is the concept of module? What does it mean? You know, in our previous examples, in our previous videos, we'll be writing our codes in a single file, but in the real world, this is practically not feasible. Just consider like code bases, for example, code base of Netflix or Amazon or Google and big products like that. It is practically impossible to have all your codes in just a single file. It is very needful to be able to split all these codes into chunks, into smaller files, so that codes that perform similar functions are always grouped together in a single file. And that's brought about the concept of module. A module is like a chunk of codes that perform the same function that are grouped together or that are arranged in a single file. We can as well illustrate a simple example of module. For example, we have a random module file here. We can create another file. Let's call it custom module. Custom module.py. That's .py. That is the extension for Python. Inside of the custom module file, we can have a variable. Let's call the variable name. So we can say the name of our variable is, we can say James. We can say the age of James is, let's say, 23, and then we can say the height of James, let's say 2 meters. All right, let's put that in string. So we can say James is 2 meters tall. All right, so we have this file now, which is a typical module, and then to use any of these values in another module, in another file, all you need to do is you first import this module so that you can work with the codes that is inside of that module, inside of that file. We do the importing using the import keyword, and then we have the name of the file, which is custom module. So by importing this module, now you can work with the codes inside of the module. So we can actually say, you can print, let's say print then custom module dot age. You can as well access every other variables inside of the custom module. Okay, so we can have height, can have name. This is just a simple illustration of module. If we print this, let's look at our output in the console. So you see, age from custom module is 23, the height is 2 meters, and the name is James. This is just a simple illustration. You can perform much more complex tasks with modules. This is what module is all about. Alright, so now let's go to our main topic, which is random module. In Python, there are times that you need to work with random numbers. You know, computers are like dumb machines. They are so predictable. They give you the same results given the same input. So given that your computers are kind of dumb machine, that they don't have a brain to reason for themselves, they only perform the operation given the command that you give to them. So how do you generate random numbers? To generate random numbers given the linear nature of our computers, you need to implement several algorithms so that you'll be able to generate random numbers on the fly. There are a series of algorithms out there that you can use to generate random numbers. But to save us from the stress of creating our own algorithm ourselves, the Python team has created a custom module. They've created a module for us to be able to generate random numbers, and that is the random module. The random module is a module created by Python for us to be able to generate random numbers, and there are various methods that are available on the random module, so you can have a greater view on those modules through this link. I already copied the links for the docs, and I also have it open here, so you can just go to your search engine, search for Python random module, and then you click on the official docs link. So it's going to lead you to this page. So this is the docs for the random module. The random module is a module that you use to generate pseudo-random numbers, and we have several methods available on the random modules with which you can use to generate random numbers or make random choices. So you have randoms.seed, you have get state, set state, you have round bytes, you have round range, and several methods like that. We have a good number of methods that are available on the random module. So in all of these methods available on the random module, we'll be discussing 3 of them in this video. So the 3 we'll be discussing is the randint, random, and the uniform out of the numerous methods available on the random module. And delete this is just for illustration of what module is. Alright, so the randint, what is the function of the randint? The randint is used for generating random numbers. As you can see, random.randint. So it returns a random integer such that a is less than or equal to n and n is less than or equal to b. Given that you pass these two numbers, these integers a and b, possibly this is 0 and this is 5, or this is 10, this is 50. You can use any number of your choice. So this will be the boundaries of the range with which the integers will be picked from, your random integers will be picked from. So if you provide the value of possibly 2 and 5, that means randint is going to pick a random number between 2 and 5. And given this statement, you have a is less than or equal to n. That means the number that you are going to pick can be between a and b, with a and b both inclusive, because we have this equal sign. So if you pass possibly 0 and 10 as your parameters, that means your random number will be between 0 and 10, with 0 and 10 inclusive. So we can see that in action. We can print, let's print. So we have random. Okay, before we work with module, just as we've seen in our custom module, the first thing you do is you import your module. As you can see here now, our random is not defined. Random is an inbuilt module. You don't need to create any custom module yourself. It is inbuilt. All you have to do is to import the module. If you do not import your module, the module is going to be undefined. So to work with any module, you need to import it. So we have random. Then we have random.randint. Randint is going to return a random integer between the values, between the range that you provided. So you can see you have a to be an integer and b to be an integer. So let's say we want to pick a random number between 0 and 5. 0 can be there, 5 can be there, and any number between 0 and 5 can be there. Let's run that and see what we have in our console. Now we have 4 as a random integer. We can as well run this again. So we have 4. Run that again. We have 1, we have 3, we have 1, we have 5. You can see now that both 0 and 5 are inclusive in our random numbers picked, because in the documentation you can see less than or equal to the number, and the number is less than or equal to the upper range. So with that, we can now move to random.random. Without much talks, we can see what random.random do in the documentation. So it returns the next random floating point number in the range of 0.0 less than the number and the number less than 1.0. So the meaning of this statement is that this method, this function random.random, it returns a number between 0 and 1. The 0 is inclusive, but 1 is not inclusive. As you can see, 0 is less than or equal to the number, that random number. So 0 is inclusive in any value to be returned by the random, but 1 is not inclusive because the number is less than 1.0. Unlike randint, random returns a floating point number, whereas randint returns an integer. So it returns a floating point number between 0 and 1. So we can see that in operation. So you can see random.random, what does it return to us? It returns 0.83 and all that. So it returns a floating point number between 0 and 1. 0 is inclusive, but 1 is never inclusive. So if you have 0.84 and like that, So if you keep running, you keep having different floating point numbers between 0 and 1. With this, you can generate any number between 0 to 1 trillion or whatever numbers that you like. If you want any random floating point number between 0 and 10, all you need to do is to multiply the output of this by 10. So if you run this now, any number generated by random will be multiplied by 10. So you can generate any number between 0 and 10 with this simple calculation. So now you see we have 5.63 and all that. You have 4.0, you have 0.48, you have 1.13, 0.7, 9.88. So you can have any floating point number between 0 and 10, but 10 will be inclusive. So if you want any number between 0 and 5, any floating point number, just use this. Right, so that's for random.random. Now for random.uniform, you can also see that in the docs, in the documentation. Random.uniform, it returns a random floating point number n such that a is less than or equal to n and n is less than or equal to b. This method is similar to randint because it also accepts number ranges, and then both numbers are inclusive in the output. Both numbers are inclusive, but the output is a floating point number. We can see that in action. Let's go to our file. Let's close this. So comment this out, print, then we have random.uniform. So it accepts two numbers. So we have float and the float. It accepts float, but for random.randint it accepts integer. So this is float. Even though it is float, you can also pass an integer. It will take that as float. If you pass just to it, you take it as 2.0, and if you pass, maybe let's say we need a number between 2 and 8, we need a floating point number between 2 and 8. So let's run this and see what we have in our console. So you see we have 3.10, then can run that again, you have that. So we have any random number between the two defined boundaries. So you have the option of either using random multiplied by any number you want, so you just use random.uniform and then you provide your range. You are at the liberty of using any of these methods, but you should note that for random.random, the upper limit is not inclusive in the output, but for random.uniform, same as random.randint, both boundaries can be included in the result. Okay, so that's that for our random module. We still have many other methods available in the random.module. You can visit the docs and suit yourself to whatever extent you like. So I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give your comment if you have any. See you in the next video.